Hey guys, before you set off to paraphrase Aunt Jennifer's Tigers on your own today, I wanted to give you a little tutorial on paraphrasing poetry. Now, paraphrasing, no matter what, does the same job. It takes an original text and you're putting it in your own words. You are honing in on what the author's intentions are and saying what might be left unsaid, but you are staying true to the meaning. So, especially with poetry, you're kind of getting into what might only be inferred and digging through what might be unfamiliar words or difficult sentence structures and kind of putting it in your own words to make sure that you have an understanding of what the poem is about. So, as we discussed before, there are differences between paraphrases and summaries. Specifically, paraphrases are oftentimes longer because they do stick to that essential meaning of everything, whereas summaries are going to hit on the main idea and oftentimes be shorter. Now, when you are paraphrasing, and paraphrasing, by the way, is a very, very important skill to have as you move forward in researching, especially at the collegiate level. You don't always want to be quoting information from resources when you are researching. And so paraphrasing gives you a nice way to stay true to the meaning of the information, and you still have to cite it, but you're putting it into your own words and you don't have to quote everything, and it makes your paper flow a lot better. In fact, I'm going to include a video that goes into more detail about paraphrasing at that level. But for our purposes here right now, we are focusing on paraphrasing a poem. So when we're paraphrasing a poem, we want to make sure that the first thing we do is read the poem all the way through at least once. Now, I'm going to pause and just let you read this poem on your own. And the reason I'm doing that is because the next thing we're going to be talking about with poetry is tone. And when you think about tone, think about it as the little voice that pops up in your head, the way that the words resonate with you, the emotion that you associate with those words. So, when you hear someone read a poem, especially someone who didn't write the poem, you are essentially getting a biased reading, someone who might put emphasis on certain words and might skew the way that you feel about the tone and essentially the emotion in the poem. So, because of that, I'm going to allow you to read this on your own. So, this is Death Be Not Proud by John Donne. Please read the poem. Okay, so you always want to read the poem straight through at least once without stopping, without looking up words, without making any notes, anything like that. Just read it through completely to fully understand the emotion and start to get a sense of the meaning of the poem. So, one of the interesting things about this poem is that we have the personification of death here, because essentially we have our speaker in the poem speaking directly to death. Death, be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. So let's take that first section there. Now, this is all one stanza. The poem you're going to be looking at today is broken up into 3 stanzas. So you will take not only line by line, but also stanza by stanza when we're paraphrasing. Now, when I say line by line, you can see that there are line breaks here, but you want where the lines break, but you want to make sure, sorry, my pen turned off. But you want to make sure, geez, that you are also paying attention to the punctuation, okay? Because the punctuation becomes quite important here because not all lines go end to end. As you can see, many of these lines, the idea and the entire thought goes through several lines before you get an end punctuation. So you always want to pay attention to that punctuation, okay? So in looking at that, we're going to go to this first semicolon because while it's not a period or an end punctuation, these couple lines are complete together. A semicolon means that you are combining two like ideas without using a period, but essentially there could be a period there. So, death be not proud, though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. So let's put this in our own words. So basically what he's saying here is, hey, death, don't be so sure of yourself. Okay? Oh boy, this is going to be bad. Don't be so sure of yourself. Death, right? Because he's talking directly to death. What if I use my finger? No, that's not any better. Because, okay, so when he says death be not proud, right? So don't be so sure of yourself, death, okay? Though some have called thee mighty and dreadful, for thou art not so. So some may think you are scary and powerful, but you are not, right? Thou art not so. You are not, right? So don't be so sure of yourself, death, because even though some think you are scary and powerful, you are not. Okay? And that would be our paraphrase. Okay? Now let's move on to finish off that the second part of that compound sentence and looking at, for those whom thou thinkest thou dost overthrow, die not, poor death, nor yet canst thou kill me, right? So one of the things that we have in this poem is a little bit of archaic language, right? The dost and the canst and just the structure of the sentence. So like I did with the first part of this, we're kind of flipping everything around and making it more sense and making it more meaningful to us and making sure that we understand what it's saying. So if we look at the first part of this, for those whom thou thinkest thou dost overthrow, right? So the people you think you control, right? The people you think you have power over, die not, right? You don't. They don't die, right? You don't have power over them. They're not dying because of you, you poor pitiful death, right? And guess what else? You can't kill me, right? Nor yet canst thou kill me, right? Now let's look at this yet, right? So he is very aware here that eventually he's going to die. Everyone dies, unfortunately. But you are not going to take me yet. You do not control me, and you are not going to kill me yet, right? And so on and so forth. So in looking at this, the rest of this poem and paraphrasing it, you come across this man, our speaker here, taking the power back from death, basically saying that death is nothing more than a long sleep. And if you look at the end here, once short sleep past, we wake eternally, right? So we have a bit of a biblical reference here with the word eternally, and death shall be no more. Because essentially, if you believe in the afterlife, if you believe religiously whatever your thoughts are about what happens after death, then you are not going to die. And essentially, we then, as people, have taken the power back from death, and then death shall die. Death will be no more because death will not have that power. Okay? In the middle here, he talks about all of these different things that actually take people's lives, right? Because things like fate, right? Something terrible happening, a car accident, etc. Chance, right? A bad, again, a bad accident. Just the world, just things, just how things happen. Kings, we're talking about a time when a king could have you killed if you kind of stepped out of line. And desperate men, right? Kind of a nod, unfortunately, to suicide. Okay, and poison, war, sickness, all of these things can take our lives, and we can take poppies, charms, herbs, etc., to make us sleep, to take our lives. And so he's questioning him, why swellest thou? Again, that kind of harkens back to this idea of being proud, right? So then why are you so proud? Don't be so sure of yourself. Okay? because again, because of my faith, the faith of the speaker here, I know that I will wake eternally and you will be no more. So I am not afraid of you, death. Okay? So, my apologies for not writing everything out. But as you can see here, we're taking what is happening here, you're putting it in your own terms, you are modernizing it as we needed to do here if that is necessary, and essentially you are just keep staying true to the meaning, but putting it in your own terms. Okay? So today, like I said, you're going to be working with in a form, a Google form, on a poem called Aunt Jennifer's Tigers by Adrienne Rich. And you're going to go read the poem, you're going to go stanza by stanza and work on paraphrasing each stanza. And then at the end, I'm going to ask you to summarize it because we've talked a bit about the difference between paraphrase and summary. Okay, guys, have a great day.